What happens when someone with zero dance training decides to become a pop star? They either fail or they do what Taylor Swift did, spend 15 years learning on the world's biggest stages. From her awkward first performances at 10 to the Eras Tour's 3-hour dance marathon, Taylor's evolution as a dancer is proof that you don't have to be naturally gifted. You just have to refuse to quit. Taylor Swift was 10 years old when she performed her first real show. It wasn't at a stadium or even a proper venue. It was at her family's Christmas tree farm in Pennsylvania, singing for customers who came to buy trees during the holiday season. She wore a Christmas sweater, held a microphone and sang country songs while people milled around looking at trees. And she definitely wasn't dancing. She stood mostly still, maybe swaying a little, focusing entirely on hitting the right notes and remembering the words. Dancing wasn't even on her radar. She was a singer, that's it. At 11, Taylor started entering karaoke contests around Pennsylvania. She'd sing Shania Twain and Faith Hill songs, country music that didn't require choreography. Stand at the microphone, hold it with both hands, maybe gesture a little with one arm during the chorus. That was the extent of her movement. And it worked fine because country music wasn't about dancing, it was about storytelling. By 13, Taylor was performing at festivals, fairs, and any venue that would book her. She'd do the national anthem at sports games, standing center field or center court, hand over heart, singing to massive crowds. Still no dancing. Didn't need it. Her voice and her songs were enough. When Taylor was 14, she convinced her parents to move to Nashville so she could pursue a music career seriously. She spent her days knocking on record label doors with demo CDs, performing at the Bluebird Cafe, doing writers' rounds where she'd sit on a stool with a guitar and play her original songs. Dancing still wasn't part of the equation. She was a songwriter first, singer second. Movement was irrelevant. At 16, Taylor released her debut album and went on her first proper tour. If you watch footage from those early shows, you'll see a 16-year-old in cowboy boots and sundresses, holding a guitar, singing her heart out. She'd walk around the stage a little. She'd crouch down to sing to fans in the front row. But choreographed dance moves, not happening. She was a country artist. Country artists didn't have backup dancers or choreography. They had authenticity and guitar solos. The Fearless era changed things slightly. Taylor was 19 and 20 during that tour, and for the first time she had backup dancers, not because she was doing complex choreography, but because her shows were getting bigger. She needed bodies on stage to fill the space, to create visual interest during the bigger production numbers. Taylor would do simple, coordinated movements with them, arm gestures, walking patterns, basic formations. Nothing you'd call actual dancing. More like moving together in the same direction. If you watch the Fearless Tour performances, you can see Taylor's still figuring it out. She'd do a little spin, a few steps side to side, maybe some arm movements during the chorus. But it was clear dancing wasn't her strength, and she knew it. In interviews from that time, she'd joke about not being a dancer, about how her dancers made her look good, about how she was more of a jump around and have fun performer. She wasn't wrong. Her dancing was enthusiastic, but unpolished. She'd get off beat sometimes. Her movements were big and energetic, but not technically precise. And that was fine for country pop. Her fans didn't care. They were there for the songs, the stories, the connection. The dancing was just a bonus. The Speak Now era was more of the same. Taylor was 20 to 22, still mostly country, still not a trained dancer. She wore ball gowns and performed with orchestras and backup singers. The dancing got slightly more coordinated. She'd learned some basics by then, but it was still simple. Twirl in a gown, walk across the stage, maybe a few steps with the dancers during You Belong With Me. Nothing that would make a professional choreographer take notice. Then came Red. This was the transition album, where Taylor started moving toward pop music. And with that transition came the realization that she'd need to step up her performance game. Pop stars danced, really danced. Not just move around the stage, but actual choreography. Complex, precise, technically difficult choreography. Taylor was 22 and 23 during the Red era, and you can see her trying harder. The choreography got more specific. She worked with professional choreographers for the first time, learning actual routines instead of just making up moves. But she was still learning, still figuring out how her body moved, how to count beats, how to make choreography look natural instead of like she was concentrating really hard on remembering the steps. Then 2014 happened. Taylor released 1989, her first official pop album, and with that came a reckoning. She was now competing with pop stars who'd been training as dancers since they were kids. Beyoncé, who'd been performing choreography since Destiny's Child. Britney, who'd trained at dance studios. Artists who'd grown up preparing to be both singers and dancers. Taylor had grown up preparing to be a country singer with a guitar. Dancing was never part of the plan. But Taylor Swift doesn't back down from challenges. So at 25 years old, with zero formal dance training, she decided to learn, really learn. She hired choreographers. She trained. She practiced. She spent hours in rehearsals working on moves that other pop stars could do in their sleep. And she did all of this in public, on the world's biggest stages, while critics watched and waited for her to fail. The 1989 World Tour was Taylor's dance school, and the entire world was watching her learn. You can see the difference between the beginning and end of that tour. She got stronger, more confident, more precise. The choreography was still simpler than what other pop stars were doing. Taylor and her team were smart enough to design routines that played to her strengths, but she was actually dancing, not just moving. Dancing. She did high kicks, in style. She had a full routine with backup dancers in Bad Blood. She moved with confidence, instead of just trying not to mess up. And most importantly, she performed these routines 53 times on that tour, night after night, getting better each time. By the time the 1989 tour ended, Taylor had gone from country singer who moves a little to pop star who can hold her own with choreography. It wasn't perfect. She still wasn't technically trained, but she'd proven she could learn, could adapt, could become something she wasn't naturally built to be. Then came Reputation. This was 2017 and 2018, and Taylor was 27 and 28. This era had a darker, more powerful aesthetic, and the choreography reflected that. Sharp movements, precise formations, actual technical difficulty. Taylor worked with choreographer Tice Diorio, who'd worked with some of the best dancers in the industry, and together they created routines that were legitimately challenging. Watch the Reputation Stadium Tour, and you'll see Taylor doing choreography that would have been impossible for her 10 years earlier. She's stronger, more controlled, more confident. She does a full routine in a gold-sequined bodysuit during Ready for It. She performs powerful, snake-inspired movements during Look What You Made Me Do. She keeps up with professional backup dancers who've been training their entire lives. More importantly, she's performing these routines in stadiums for 3 hours a night, multiple times a week. That's not just about learning choreography anymore. That's about stamina, muscle memory, physical conditioning, that's about being an athlete as much as a performer. The Lover era brought softer, more whimsical choreography. Taylor was 29 and 30, and the performances were colorful, joyful, less about precision and more about storytelling through movement. She did the "you need to calm down" choreography that went viral. She performed at award shows with full routines. She'd become completely comfortable with choreographed performances. Then came the pandemic, and with it, Folklore and Evermore, albums that brought Taylor back to storytelling, to sitting at a piano or holding a guitar. The Long Pond studio sessions showed Taylor at 30 and 31, back to her roots, minimal movement, just music and emotion. Some people thought this meant she was done with the dancing, done with the big choreographed pop performances. They were very, very wrong. In 2023, at 33 years old, Taylor Swift launched the Eras Tour, and it wasn't just a concert. It was 3.5 hours of non-stop performance, covering 17 years and 10 albums, 44 songs, more than 10 costume changes, choreography for almost every song. And not simple choreography, complex, era-specific routines that had to honor the original performances while being physically sustainable for a 3.5-hour show. The Eras Tour is where everything Taylor learned over 15 years came together. She opens with the Lover era, colorful, energetic dancers in pastel suits, Taylor in a sparkly bodysuit, doing choreography that's both precise and joyful. Then into Fearless, where she pays homage to her earlier, simpler choreography, while doing it with the confidence and skill she's built over the years. She moves through Evermore and Reputation, and Speaks Now, each era with its own dance style, its own choreography, its own physical demands. During the 1989 section, she does the routines she learned on that tour, but better, cleaner, with the benefit of 8 more years of experience. During Reputation, she does some of the most technically difficult choreography of the entire show, powerful and precise. She transitions through Folklore, then into the acoustic section where she sits with a guitar, a callback to 16-year-old Taylor, but now she's doing it in the middle of a 3.5-hour athletic performance. Then back up for surprise songs, then into Midnights with entirely new choreography she learned specifically for this tour. The physical demands of the Eras Tour are brutal. Professional dancers have called it one of the most difficult shows they've ever done. 3.5 hours, 44 songs, constant movement, costume changes, transitioning between completely different choreographic styles, and Taylor does it multiple nights a week, for months on end. She's 34 years old now, performing shows that would be challenging for professionally trained dancers in their 20s, and she's doing it while singing live, while connecting with fans, while making every show feel special and personal, despite the massive scale. The evolution is staggering. 10-year-old Taylor at the Christmas tree farm, standing mostly still, focusing on singing. 16-year-old Taylor with a guitar, doing minimal movement. 25-year-old Taylor learning pop choreography for the first time, working hard to keep up. 34-year-old Taylor commanding a stage for 3.5 hours with choreography so complex it required years of training to execute. She didn't start as a dancer. She wasn't trained as a child. She didn't grow up in dance studios or take years of ballet and jazz. She was a country singer with a guitar who decided to become a pop star, and that meant learning to dance in front of the entire world. And she did it. Not perfectly. She'd probably be the first to say she's not a technically perfect dancer, but perfectly enough, confidently enough, powerfully enough to hold her own on the world's biggest stages, to perform shows that even trained dancers find brutal, to evolve from can't really dance to commands the stage for 3 hours. The Eras Tour isn't just a concert. It's a masterclass in evolution. It's 17 years of growth condensed into one show. Every era represented, every style of choreography honored, every stage of Taylor's development visible. You can see where she came from, the simple movements, the country roots, and where she's gone, the complex choreography, the pop star command, the athletic endurance. Critics who said she can't dance back in 2014 aren't saying that anymore. They can't, because the evidence is right there, 3.5 hours long, performed night after night after night. Taylor Swift learned to dance in public, on the world's biggest stages, while millions watched and criticized and doubted. And she didn't just learn, she mastered it. Not in the traditional sense. She'll never be a technically trained dancer with perfect lines and textbook technique. But in the sense that matters, she learned to use movement to tell stories, to enhance songs, to connect with audiences, to command a stage so completely that 70,000 people can't look away. That's the evolution. From 10-year-old at a Christmas tree farm to 34-year-old performing the most physically demanding tour in pop music history. From I'm just a singer to I'm an athlete, a performer, a dancer, and a storyteller all at once. From I can't really dance to watch me do this for 3.5 hours and then do it again tomorrow night. Taylor Swift's dance evolution isn't just about learning choreography. It's about refusing to let not being trained mean never learning. It's about being willing to look awkward while you figure it out. It's about practicing in public, failing in public, improving in public. It's about spending 15 years becoming something you weren't born to be. And it's proof that you don't have to be naturally gifted. You don't have to train from childhood. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to learn, to work, to keep showing up even when critics say you can't. 10-year-old Taylor didn't know she'd spend her 20s learning to dance on the world's biggest stages. 16-year-old Taylor didn't know she'd become a pop star who'd perform 3.5-hour shows with complex choreography. 25-year-old Taylor, learning her first real routines, didn't know she'd eventually perform shows that professional dancers call brutal. But 34-year-old Taylor knows exactly what she became, someone who refused to let I can't be permanent, someone who turned 15 years of learning into a 3.5-hour masterclass, someone who proved that evolution isn't about starting perfect. It's about refusing to stay the same. From the Christmas tree farm to the Eras Tour, from awkward to commanding, from can't dance to watch this. That's not just evolution, that's transformation, and it happened one performance, one tour, one era at a time, in front of the entire world. If that's not inspiring, nothing is.